Wayne, are any of the individuals that are involved in the conspiracy, because the government by itself can't conspire, but the individuals have any personal liability, can they be named?
The one thing that I did not mention is that the possibility of a Bivens action against the employees of the United States, because you're exactly right. The Constitution doesn't allow the government to break the law. Only the employees working for the government can break the law. And so that would entail Bivens actions against those employees. That's still on the table. We still might do that.
Next question.
The question was time frame for the Ninth Circuit, and assuming for decision purposes.
There's no time frame. They can make their judgment anytime they want. It might come out today, it might come out a year from now, but there is no time frame.
But from an energy standpoint, with the session, did you get the feeling that it's going to be relatively soon, like 30 to 60, 90 days?
I won't guess.
Retrospective damages.
Again, I'm not going to guess on that.
So, Wayne, let's put yourself in the government's position. What if you did take that water? Or if you took it away? Because you have these beloved horses that 327 million Americans think are just cool. Even though they're one generation from a jackrabbit and hopping off into sagebrush. But if that water is not there, not only the horses but the wildlife, and part of the whole multiple use is gone. Do they think about that?
Well, that's yes and no. As far as the horses are concerned, the horses don't have a water right in the state of Nevada. The BLM has no water right for those horses. So as far as they're concerned, yeah, the horses are probably going to get a little thirsty.
Wait a minute, horses don't get thirsty. They're either watered or they die.
Well, the United States has a problem on that. They'll have to remove those horses. Now, as far as the wildlife is concerned, that's completely different. I can't speak for any other states because I don't know, but under Nevada law, the wildlife has a vested right to that water. Now, that's surface water. They don't have a vested right to the wells that are drilled because those didn't exist at that time. But as far as the rest of the water, yes, the wildlife still has to have water to sustain themselves. But horses, no.
Questions?
I got one. Can I ask Wayne a question?
Yeah,
Am I DQ'd? Okay. Wayne, if you go into mediation, as the Ninth Circuit's recommending, do we lose opportunities to create legal precedents from your case? And is there a way to avoid that?
From what I understand, yes, we would lose the legal precedent for the case. I mean, if Trent asked me if I put myself in the government shoes, and I've thought about that. If I was them, I think mediation would be probably the best thing, and for us, maybe not so much, just for the simple reason is we're a tad bit ideological. We would like to have that precedent set for everybody else. I'm not going to speak for the state, I'll speak for myself on that. Mediation won't accomplish that. And right now, all the precedent that's set is basically in the government's favor. So I think they would be better off for mediation, and I think I probably, on an ideological point of view, would be better off not to have mediation.
Comes to a decision I recently reached is how much ideology can I afford? At some point, which unfortunately weighs in. Well, thank you.
I would have a question for either one of you along those lines, and then we're going to spread the wealth. Angus is tomorrow going to talk about case law, but there's an ever-growing thought process that maybe I would like, meaning that I personally subscribe to, is that case law is an interpretation of another judge, not necessarily of this Constitution. When can we bring it back to what does the Constitution say, as opposed to Gerber versus Duarte? John, you can go first with that fun one.
Well, I think ultimately courts are set up for dispute resolution. within a constitutional framework. So at some point, you need to have an answer, and that needs to become an answer that provides predictable results going forward. That's the common law tradition. And so I don't think we can leave the Constitution on its own and not have a common law, case law tradition under it. Our problem becomes the overwhelming advantages of the government when it comes to being challenged in court. They can up the ante like they did with my family and, go $45 million in damages at risk in front of a judge that's proven to be incredibly unfriendly to our case. Or they can simply drag it out for 40 years and see if they can wear us down. But I don't know that you can avoid having case laws and precedents as a way to make courts function and work.
We have an attorney sitting to your right. I want his opinion. Zach Gerber.
I agree. Our system is based on case law, and that's probably one of the best systems that we have in the world that we've come up with, is to have case law. Unfortunately, as he said, it can be extremely expensive and take a long time. And litigation a lot of times is not the best way to go, just because you wear out all your resources by the end, and the government knows that, and they use it to their advantage.
Ian, you have an opinion on that? The next
I got one more opinion. Sorry. It's like Reed asks all the questions he wants.
No, he can ask no questions tomorrow. His quote is over.
Our failure is in Congress. The laws that are being passed are not being protected by Congress. The bureaucracies are running amok. But we've always had bureaucracies, whether it's under kings or whether it's under presidents. Bureaucracies are a fixture. It's Congress that's within the constitutional framework that's unique. And until we can communicate better and get Congress to do more of the things they need to be doing more effectively, we're in trouble. So I really locate the problem there.
Wayne? Did you want to chime in? You don't need to, Wayne. Do you have anything more? Ian, do you want to comment on that?
Sorry.
There is one thing that I would like to say. You can go to and this is coming back to our case, and I would strongly recommend that people do this so that I'm not misrepresenting something. Go to the Ninth Circuit Court's website. On that website, they have a link, and you can watch that hearing on YouTube. And I think you'll really get a lot out of it to find out what the Ninth Circuit is thinking as far as property rights and how important they are in that water, and what are the possibilities going forward. And because it doesn't just affect us, it affects you too. Yes, it's United States versus Hage.
Oh, yes, all right. Super. I'll hold the microphone.
All right. I'm Susie Smith from cattle rancher from Kern County, and we heard Congressman Nunes talk about draining the swamp and how difficult it is, and how they have to depend on the Senate confirmation of a lot of the leaders. But then you have all those layers, including the federal prosecutors. And so we talked about the need for Congress to step up and not be intimidated by the bureaucracy, which we have seen that. Our congressman is Kevin McCarthy, who's being vetted for majority leader. And we've sensed that they've not wanted to put pressure on the bureaucracy to change it. But is that something that Trump can do in the executive branch, change those lower layers? Because I can tell you this, Democratic presidents get in, and conservative people who have been in those posts that are like regional BLM people or Fish and Wildlife Service, they're booted into a closet. They don't have to be fired, but they can move them out. And you are on the Trump team, right? So could we get some people to encourage Trump to get some of those good people in there in those places and put some of the other bureaucrats in closets or out of the way somewhere?
Oh, that's beautiful. Can we put them in a closet?
I'll answer that.
I'm out of the closet. Who's that? John, you gonna take that?
I am. The guys in the Department of Justice under Jeff Sessions that would not let us settle our case with the rights to appeal were Trump appointees. They were under Jeff Sessions. They came over with him from his Senate work. One of them was a Pacific Legal Foundation alumni, and the federal prosecutor, Gregory Broderick, who joined the Army Corps of Engineers, was a Republican Pacific Legal Foundation alumni. Now, I think the Pacific Legal Foundation is a great organization, and they do a lot of great stuff, but just because somebody worked there doesn't mean they're worth anything once they leave. For some of them, it's just a stepping stone. And so there are red swamp rats and there are blue swamp rats. And we hoped for better in a lot of cases, but these folks who'd rather be in Washington, D.C. than out on the land with the rest of us are going to think differently than the rest of us, regardless of their political party.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that? The only thing that I'll add from a Trump Ag Advisory Committee that we do talk about and have a conscience effort about is that when you have a president who thinks like you do from a conservative standpoint and wants to charge down the path of more trade, trade actually is under the authority of Congress, not the President of the United States. And there are many things that we don't want the president to overstep his bounds on right now, even though we like the president, because we're not going to have Donald Trump as president forever. Trust me. So we need to keep those checks and balances in mind, and I know that we talk about that on a regular basis. Any other comments or weigh in on that? Okay. Are you going to engage the ladies in the back row? And John? I'll hold this.
He's talking about the microphone. Yeah, okay, so Susan Sluhouse, Mauricio. With regard to what you were talking about with the difficulty in finding people we can talk to, and this goes to everybody, all of you have been dealing with these different bureaucracies at different levels with different issues that eventually do affect us all. Is there more that we can do as far as calling, letter writing? I mean, something even more effective. Sometimes we all feel like we're the lone voice in the wilderness, and that maybe what we're doing, maybe we could do something different, or maybe we could do more. Because I'll tell people what to do.
Pam, I'll let you go first. Hold on, you're not Pam.
Actually, I think, yes. Wasn't it you earlier talking about the letter writing? Yeah, that's important. If you see an issue, our Cattle Growers State Association sends out call to action often. I watch those. Those can be helpful. In our case, where it's not as publicized, you have processes and procedures that are broken. If you know about them, a letter would certainly help if more people wrote letters. I was just talking to somebody in the back who is somewhat excluded from their NEPA process when they should be. It's a federal process. So their process should be the same as ours, other than the demographics. We need to have consistent regulations, and it seems like they're applied willy-nilly sometimes.
Speaking of willy-nilly, Tim Smith.
I'd like to make a comment on that. I do a lot of.
Hold on. You got both of them, okay.
I do a lot of internet communications with our state legislature and stuff. I think that's important because you have to hit all layers. You can't just go to the feds, and you have to hit the middle layers, which is the state, and you have to also hit your local layers. So when you see something that comes across and there's educational value to that, because a lot of people think just because these guys get elected at the state level that they know a lot of stuff. Trust me, a lot of them don't know jack about anything. And they learn that as they go along. And if you're part of that learning process for them, by giving them information, I think that's really valuable. So when you get a story or a fact or some data, say global warming or climate change, for example, pass that along, because a lot of these guys don't have time to go out and do their own research and find out these issues. If you can help them along the way, Granted, some of the staff takes away some of that stuff from them and screens it out, but a lot of it goes through because I get responses back from a lot of legislators when I send out good stuff that they want to hear and they haven't seen. So I think that's important. Hit all those levels. Don't just get the feds and don't just get to the local, but hit those state legislatures because they're the ones who actually communicate with their congressmen a lot.
And I'll add to that that there's never been a time to be easier to be unique than right now. How is that? A handwritten letter.
Oh, yeah.
I get 1,000 emails a day, and I read, a few. I try to read them all, and I know elected officials the same way. Beth Ann, I bet you the same exact way. You get a handwritten letter, and it's so unique, you read it. And it's always somebody who's really passionate about it. So the best way to capture the attention is to handwrite that letter, put a 52, is that what it costs today? 52-cent stamp on it and send it. Sarah, were you going to weigh in on that?
Yes, snail mail, that's awesome. And yes, that would definitely make you unique. But something that's been weighing on my mind about what can people do is, first of all, we have to get our personal lives in order. And I'll use myself as an example. Right now, I don't even know where I'm going to be. We're in between careers. We have 2 houses. One's on the market to be sold. I don't even know if I'm going to be in Utah County longer, in 2 months from now. And so I feel like my family is really unstable. We're not in a community where I have established relationships that I can leverage. And so when you are in a position where you are in a community for a long period of time, which is becoming not the norm anymore because we are such a transit society that moves from county to county and we travel from one county to another to work. And so I think that problem in and of itself is causing issues with knowing how to be connected to your community and being actively involved. But I really believe that if we had Keep the Republic teams or communities or people who are mutually pledged in every single county in this country who were working towards establishing relationships with their representatives, with the delegates, with, their governors, even if it was an undesirable relationship, but they were willing to have enough emotional intelligence to be diplomatic, and when the point comes to be able to be in a position to influence or leverage or provide information like you were saying, you would have more sway because you had that history or that rapport built. And so just doing the effort to build the rapport with these individuals, maybe going out to lunch or a phone call with your legislature, letting them know your face, something consistently, maybe make it a goal every month, I'm going to do this and try to establish this rapport so that you can have this opportunity to leverage. And I don't know if that makes sense, because you can't just go to your elected officials or your governors and fist pound the pulpit when you're angry and being violated and expect some results. You need to have that rapport built. And when after my dad was killed, grasping that idea was like my ears would turn on fire and I'd have smoke coming out because I just couldn't even stand hearing the name of certain officials, or let alone uttering their name out of my mouth. And so I had to overcome that and realize, okay, we need to have this working relationship, and it's not going to happen with slander coming out of my mouth. And I need to be able to be approachable and have that rapport built. And I'm still working on it. So.
Kathy Smith, you've developed relationships, you're community-centered. What's your wisdom on getting your message to resonate?
Well, first of all, I want to say the reason we're here, when Wayne was talking about never, never, never give up, I couldn't help but think back how Wayne's father, Wayne Hage Sr., and my husband, Bert Smith, were in this effort a long time ago. And we're never going to give up. And the reason we hold these meetings with all of you is so that we can build that community of people who have been in the fight for a long time. We're going to do it with love and kindness. That's why we have a new nonprofit called Loving Liberty. Who can argue with that? We'd like to think no one can argue with loving liberty. We all love liberty. We don't understand what that liberty means, I think, for some of that slice of people in the middle, maybe who aren't us, and they're not so far gone on the left, and they're not so far gone here, that young people especially that we need to educate. So that's what we're all about. But Wayne, I was really touched when you were talking. I thought, his dad and my Bert Smith are, very proud of us today. Same can be said with Zach's dad, Grant Gerber, and Bert were really good friends. And anyway, we're in this room together, but this is the eternal fight between tyranny and liberty. And some of you, like Beth Ann, articulate it so well. Joe, we have a lot of really talented radio hosts, Brian Hyde, here in the room. Many of you are very savvy with media, and people like me are learning how to tap into that, and we're here to build community. We also have the most outstanding attorneys ever in this country are in these symposia with us because they understand what's at stake. And then we have to just salute you, John, too, for your courage. I just shouldn't name any names because you're all in on it together, so thank you. Out of a similar meeting like this about a year ago, not the symposia, but just a group of like-minded people, came another website called Who's Next? And it was just us getting together and talking around a table and having dessert, and we said, what do we do next? Well, thanks to Joe and Brian, we have a Facebook page called Who's Next? And, they can tell you later about what kind of traction that is getting, because we can all identify with that concept of who's next. And it's not just federal overreach, like Tim mentioned. I think sometimes we want to point the finger at the federal government, but it's every level of government that's overreaching, impacting American families, and we're trying to tell those stories too. So good things happen out of these meetings, and we shouldn't be discouraged.
Can I talk?
You may.
Okay. We talk a lot about government overreach, and when Kathy said that, we like to blame the federal government a lot. And, it's true, the federal government is a tool, but it's a societal thing. So this recent fight on agriculture and blaming ag producers and those that produce for everything is a societal issue. And so we need to get people to understand what's at stake. It's been probably at least 3 generations since this great country has known collective hunger. And so, if we want to keep being able to go to the store and go buy furniture and go buy clothing whenever we want, we need to stand behind these people that produce food and fiber for this nation. And it's no different than freedom for the slaves. The government just didn't just say, oh, we're going to grant freedom to the slaves. No, society demanded it. The government just didn't say, oh, we're going to allow women to vote. No, society demanded it. And until society demands that we protect the food and the safety of the food and our next generation, whether the federal government itself changes or not, things won't change.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that? Next question, and I assume Melody, if not Wayne, came from the floor. Your thought process on the discussion about the BLM offices relocating.
I'm a firm believer that the BLM offices controlling the land in my county should be in the county. I think it's great they're moving from DC closer to the west, but I think they should be closer to feet on the ground they're trying to control.
Wayne?
have anything to say.
You know where they're all at now, why move them?
I want to say something about that local involvement. One thing I learned from Bert was when we talk about the NEPA, and we're going to talk about coordination tomorrow, but we talk about stakeholders and the NEPA. How can we get county commissioners and supervisors to understand that that stakeholders table belongs to them? We need to flip that around so that instead of us going hat in hand to the federal government, we invite those federal bureaucrats. If we can't get rid of them, we need to help them understand that these county stakeholder tables belong to the county, and they come at our invitation, not the other way around.
That recipe is coming tomorrow from Brush, Colorado, right there.
Anxious to hear it.
Any other thoughts, discussions from the floor? Okay, Aaron, you're, what, Chuck?
If we were to take one thing home that all of you have in common today, what would it be?
I was about to say, Aaron, would you start with the one thing to take home from today? Thank you, Chuck.
I'll start because I've got it in my hand. I think just this sense of community and not giving up, being hopeful and engaged.
Aaron Moffin.
Freedom.
Melody? Nope, everybody's going to get weighed in.
You're not alone. We have a network started, and if you're under attack, you're not alone. Just start calling people.
Keep working at it.
John? Talk into that nice microphone's your friend.
I've been to a lot of these type deals, and you come away from this with a lot of new friends. And so I would say everybody here, don't be afraid to reach out and ask the questions, get some people on your side and use them as a tool, because they know somebody you don't. It's like the word will spread faster that way. We have Facebook and all this stuff now that I really don't get into too much, but it's amazing to read how many hits somebody gets when you can voice your opinion that way on social media.
Last night in driving to the hotel from the airport, I got to speak with Doug, and he gave me a lot of encouragement. I think that we took our long detour because I needed to be in his company and hear what he had to say to me, and just be reminded that who really is in control, and that is the author of liberty. And we get so consumed. I can only speak for myself. In the last 24 to 30 months, have been overwhelmed and consumed with the wickedness of this world. And I've allowed that at certain times to cause me to fall into deep, I was calling despair last night, but he told me that, the true definition of despair is losing all hope in God. And I haven't gotten that far, but I can say I've experienced a deep frustration, anger, grief, whatever other word you want to use, and I have taken my eye off of God at certain points, and I am so grateful to the principle of remembering who is in control, keeping my eye on the glory of God. And when I choose to have that mentality and remember, then I am empowered with emotions of hope, faith instead of defeat and despair, and that's truly powerful.
Ian?
I think it's important to know that even though there's not a lot of people out here on our side, but there's a lot of really high quality people on our side. So I think it's important to remember that.
Your last. Back.
I'd reiterate my message that wildfires are extremely dangerous, They kill millions of animals, and they spew billions of pounds of pollution, and that's not being reported. I just spoke with a reporter that's here, and we have a lot here. And I looked up the website for this reporter, and it claimed to be, I guess, News for the West. I found a wildfire article about how wildfires pollute, and they cause damage to humans just by breathing and by those emissions. And there was one other article that said wildfires are started over 80% by humans. However, if you look at the actual facts about wildfires, the majority of wildfire acres that are actually burned are burned by lightning costs. So it really doesn't matter what happens with the spark. It matters what the fuel level is. And I hope everyone here, and especially the reporters, will report accurately on wildfires. The wildfires are killing millions of animals. They're spewing billions of pounds of pollution. It would take all the drivers last year in California 50 years to make up for all the pollution emitted by the wildfires last year. The only solution to this is to reduce the fuel on the range. And we've reduced logging, we've reduced grazing. The only way to get rid of these wildfires is to resurrect the logging industry and put grazing back on the land. So I hope that gets out in the news, and that somebody does an article on the dangers of wildfires and the amount of pollution that they're actually causing.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to rewrite the story. We are the champions. We are the heroes. We provide abundance. We provide sustainable environmental solutions. We are the ecologists. Those who bring scarcity, those who force us to allow our natural resources to go up in smoke, those are the villains. And if we can move the public, we can move the law, and we can move the policy.
For me, I would say don't give up. About the time that you think that things are lost, they might turn around for you. When deciding what to do, for me, I just have to break it down simply, get all monetary and emotional thoughts out of the head, and just simply get down to what is right and what's wrong, and proceed that way. It makes decision-making a lot easier. But ultimately, everybody has to make their own choice on what they're going to do. Make a choice and make it wisely. And just remember that every time that I ever thought that we had it really, really rough and things were really super ugly for our family and myself personally, I didn't have to look very far to see somebody that was in worse shape. And I can say you can get through it. So hold your head up and proceed.
And Tim Smith.
I guess I would say all those things are really, really important, but I think the long-term, in my mind, the long-term thing that we have to realize is that this is going to be an ongoing battle. And first and foremost, in my mind, is education. Education about our Constitution, education about the science behind what John and all of them are talking about, and Zach. Education, because we're not going to be here forever. Some of us are getting, toward the end, and we have to instill in the people out there the roots of why we're here, and so that they can go on. It's a generational issue. It's not going to happen. To quote my wife, and about the same thing is what we're sowing here. But she says, you plant corn, you get corn. So, I think that's important to remember that, because it's not just for today, it's for the long term. This issue is never going to be solved completely. We have to get more people in the game through education today for the long term.
I think it's been a fantastic day. Before I get into something and then forget what Don Borges just told me, remember tomorrow to park over here in this parking lot, please. And this door will be open, Don, right here, this door will be open. We have another event taking place on the campus tomorrow, maybe something fun like a horse show. But anyway, my closing thought of the day would be this. Last week I was asked to speak in Pheasanton, North Dakota at the 75th celebration of a farmer co-op. And I thought, well, it'd be interesting to just go look and see what was happening in 1943 when Pheasanton Co-op began. The world leaders of that time, in 1943, that day, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Winston Churchill, a fellow by the name of Mussolini, another guy by the name of Stalin, and another guy by the name of Hitler. 3 of those 5 individuals we know committed genocide on 70 million people. I'm going to take out of Wayne's playbook right there what he just said. We had the theme today of food fight, and we're here talking about the challenges that we have and the things that we really need to hunker down on and decide how we are going to maintain that freedom. But if you compare it to what the world was like in 1943, we got it pretty good. And we got it pretty good because 243 years ago there was a group of guys who wanted to create independence and freedom and terror, the pursuit of happiness. If you put it into context, that we live in the youngest country in the world with the oldest constitution. That's the forefathers that created that opportunity for us. And then it falls back on who to take it to the next level and maintain it for the next generation. The very people that are here and the very people that absolutely want to take a stand for freedom. This country was built by the individuals who make a difference in the Constitution. That's the challenge. We want to go home, and John alluded to, we do something different tomorrow than we did yesterday in preserving our freedom. Thank you for being here today. Thanks for a very good discussion.